All right, so we've looked at modules, components, and templates. Well, services are another huge part of Angular. So what is a service? A service is a class that we can use to create and send functionality and data across multiple components. All right, so this allows us to keep our components nice and lean and not have them be too bloated. All right, but more importantly, it stops us from having to repeat ourselves, which is a big no-no in just about any programming language and or framework. All right, now Angular is a front-end framework, meaning that it's often paired with some kind of back-end server-side program. It could be a mean stack application where you're interacting with a Node.js server. It could be interacting with a PHP program, Python, or anything else. So we usually need to communicate with these back-end services, and the HTTP module is usually used for that. So an Angular service is the perfect place to do this because you're often going to need that data, and you're going to need it from multiple components. So imagine if you had to put all your AJAX calls and all your data fetching inside each individual component, even if each component used the same data. So that would be a horribly structured app. So having a service lets us do it once and then spread it across as many components as we need, which is very efficient, but it's also very scalable. If you were going to add another component and you needed that data, you could simply bring in the service. All right, so how do we create a service? The first thing we need to do is create a file, a TypeScript file, usually inside of a services folder. And then we need to import something called injectable from Angular, which allows us to take this service and inject it as a dependency into a component or something else. All right, then we need to add it as a provider in ng module. Okay, you guys know that app.module.ts holds a directive called ng module, and that takes in some providers, and that's where you put your services. All right, once you do that, you can bring it into any component, and you can use any of your service functions inside that component. So let's take a look at a very, very simple service class. So as you can see, we're importing the injectable package from Angular Core. And then we're also importing a user model here. So this would be like an interface or something like that, or just a class model. And then we're also importing some mock users. Okay, so this would be like a file, a JSON file, or something like that. Something that mimics fetching users from a database. All right, then we have the injectable directive here above the class, and then the class is, in this case, user service. And we have a function here called get users, and it's typed to a user, which we brought in from the model. And then we're just returning the users that we brought in from mock users. All right, so that's how we would create a service. Now, you can also create a service using Angular CLI by just doing ng generate service and then whatever you want to call it. Okay, so you can do that as well. This will create the service file and the class, although you do need to add it as a provider to ng module. I know when we generate components with Angular CLI, it does it for us. It puts the component, it imports it into the module file, but for some reason with services, we have to do it manually. All right, so that's a very basic overview of what services are. In the next video, I'm going to show you how we can create a service.